there is a way in which consuming sugar could make fat loss easier.
Oh my goodness.
Does that sound backwards or what? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast that brings you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. Chris, listeners might or might not know, so I'm going to ask you straight up. Do you have a sweet tooth?
I'm a sweet guy, you know. I do.
That wasn't my question. We know that.
I do have a sweet tooth. I'm less of a salty guy, more of a sweet tooth guy. Especially, interestingly enough, at breakfast, I like
Really?
a nice sweet breakfast. Yeah.
Oh, so
Which
that's
is every day is protein oats, but I just put like a lot of dark chocolate in it and berries
Ooh.
and flavored protein powder, which is kind of sweet, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. You also have your nightly creamy. So I feel like you kind of like start your day with a little bit of sweet stuff and then end your day with a little bit of sweet stuff.
You know, it's funny. I only do that when I'm in a fat loss phase. I haven't done
really?
it in a few weeks. Yeah, it's weird. It's one of those habits. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good. So you're all kinds of sweet. I feel like I don't really have much of a sweet tooth. So sometimes when we start talking about like sugar cravings and stuff like that, it's not always something I relate to because I like give me a bag of chips, demolished, right? Like I've got the salty personality, I guess. I don't know, whatever you call it. Salty personality and salt cravings. But there are these moments where I'm like, I just really want a piece of chocolate right now or something like that, you know? Or like, I think what really gets me is like a really good chocolate chip cookie. Like there's something about that for me that's really satisfying. And so I think whether or not you have a sweet tooth, a lot of conversations I have with people, often about nutrition in general, like tend to somehow find the way towards sugar, right? And especially I've had a few conversations with people to start the year, and we're recording this, it's still January, where people are kind of setting these intentions around cutting out sugar. Like, have you been hearing that too? Like a lot of people talking about, oh, it's time to cut out sugar.
Yeah, I definitely heard that, or just not even just in New Year, just in general, people being like, "Oh, I'm trying to stop eating sugar, but I'm addicted to sugar," or something like stuff like that.
Yeah,
which it's a different topic, but but yeah, I definitely hear that a lot.
Yeah.
So we're gonna definitely give some good perspectives for those type of people who are saying those things in this one.
Yeah, I think so. As a result, people only really talk about sugar as like cutting it out when they're trying to make improvements to their diet. And I think we're here today. We really want to debunk the myth of how sugar contributes to fat gain, because it is a myth in some ways. But we're actually going to also talk about the nuance, right? This is not as simple as like go eat all the sugar, indulge your sweet tooth, or cut it out entirely. We always want to explore the gray zone. And I think this episode sets up a perfect gray zone conversation around like, how do we put sugar into perspective when it comes specifically to body composition, right? We're talking about how it relates to your body composition. So I'm excited for this one.
I'm really excited as well. Yeah, I think this is one I'm going to be sending around.
Yeah. Circulating.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants the direct URL, well, if you're listening, you already have it. So share it with someone else you want to circulate around with. All right. So let's start off with, why is sugar the villain? Like, everyone's trying to cut out sugar. Some people do it for other reasons, but a lot of people do it because they think it's going to help them change their body composition, whether that's to reduce weight gain or drive fat loss. So can you talk a little bit about like, why is sugar the villain and why are so many people trying to cut it out?
I think a lot of marketing has told us that like when you eat sugar, it goes right to body fat or something like that, or it spikes your insulin, which means you're going to store body fat right away. And just as a general rule of thumb, if anybody immediately talks about hormones in terms of like this stuff, like, and that's not an endocrinologist, don't listen to them. So online, like, just ignore any of that stuff. But yeah, I think it's like, oh yeah, sugar will spike your insulin, and which causes fat storage. Like, that's one I hear a lot. Or just, low carb diets being advertised a lot, or saying, you shouldn't eat carbs, and sugar is obviously carbs, right? Mm-hmm. So I think those are the two biggest ones in my mind.
Yeah, there's a whole like zero sugar, low carb movement that goes back to the 80s, came back around with keto, all that. You and I also picked zero sugar options for things, but let it be known that it's not because it's inherently zero sugar. It's for other reasons that we're going to explore in just a second. I think also there is, like you talked about, sugar-free marketing and stuff like that. And there's some merit to this too. Our society is starting to like scrutinize processed foods a lot more for good reasons. But also when we think of sugar, we typically think about highly processed foods. So when people are looking to include more whole foods, sometimes that comes with the flip or counter narrative of like, let's not eat sugar, right? And so there's a lot of history there, right? Some of it marketing driven, some of it, food trend driven, and some of it misconception driven, like what you're talking about
Yes.
with like insulin spikes and stuff like that. But we want to actually say, forget the history. We know why sugar has been villainized. What's the truth behind it? Does it deserve that rap or not?
It's a complicated one. It definitely doesn't deserve the rap it has. Like, it's definitely false for me to say sugar causes fat gain. Like, that's
That's a
completely
falsehood. Yeah.
false for me to say.
Can you just say that
Would
one
I?
more time?
Yeah, sugar does not cause fat gain. Yeah. So very important. Why we might see people say, I ate more sugar and I ended up gaining weight is not because of the sugar itself. Is
Mm-hmm.
because the types of highly processed sugar that we're referring to is very easy to overeat because it's
Mm-hmm.
hyper palatable
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
very calorie dense.
So
So
exactly what you're saying here is like, let's actually talk about what does cause weight gain,
yeah.
right? Because what you're alluding to is like all these things that sugar is often bundled with, which I want to
Mhm.
definitely unpack in just a second. But I first want to
Yeah.
just harp on that sentence of like, sugar does not cause weight gain. So if somebody is trying to understand, well, why am I gaining weight then if I'm eating
Mhm.
sugar? It's like, let's take the sugar out of the equation for a second.
Yeah.
Where does weight gain start?
Yeah. We're just consistently eating more than our body needs. Consistently eating more energy than our body needs. So the excess of that energy gets stored in a lot of ways, and one of the ways being body fat.
Mm-hmm. And if people don't know, energy is calories. Calories are energy. So it's the overconsumption, consistent overconsumption of calories that gets stored as body fat. There is no other way that we store body fat except for excess calories. So then the flip side of that is fat loss. If somebody is trying to actually drive fat loss, they have to be in a calorie deficit. They have to be consuming fewer calories than they're ingesting. So it doesn't matter if sugar is part of that calorie balance equation or not. When we're just talking strictly about weight gain or fat loss, it doesn't matter what we're eating.
Yeah, exactly. Something important to say about sugar is like if you have sugar, it doesn't immediately put you into a calorie surplus all of a sudden. So therefore, it can't directly cause fat gain. And when we really break down like what sugar is exactly, it's just the simplest form of a carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
So technically also fruits are sugars, right? Like when are fruits causing fat gain? Like, well, nowadays there's a stupid myth going around that it is,
Oh my God,
that they
ridiculous.
are. But yeah, fruits do not cause fat gain. But if I eat an apple, I'm technically eating sugar. And guess what? When our body breaks down any potatoes or any oats or whatever, it's broken down into technically sugar.
Sugar. So even those complex carbs that are not just quote unquote healthy, they're good for us. They're giving us tons of nutritional value. They're filling. They carry fiber with them. Like all of those great carb sources all get essentially broken down into simple sugars. And you said that, sugar is essentially just the most basic form of carb. Let's quickly just connect that back into the conversation around calorie balance, right? Carbohydrates are one of the three macronutrients. We've got carbs, fats, and protein. If you want our, basic intro to all three of those, I'll link it here in the description below so you can listen to that episode. But those are the three things that have caloric value. And the unofficial one is alcohol, also has caloric value, separate conversation. But when we talk about, okay, calories come from carbs, fats, and protein. If sugar is a form of carbs, it does contribute calories. It has caloric value, but it doesn't matter, or it's not a different type of calorie
Yeah,
necessarily. There's
exactly.
no multiple types of calories in there. So if you're over consuming from fats or from, well, protein, there's nuance there, but whatever you're over consuming, if it is having a caloric value, doesn't matter if it's sugar or not. Sugar is just one of the ways that we could potentially get more calories in from our diet.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just ask and answer the question
Again.
again, but in a different format.
In a different way, yeah.
You said earlier, sugar does not cause weight gain or fat gain. Can you lose fat while eating sugar?
Absolutely. You definitely can. And as I've said in multiple podcast episodes, I've gotten pretty damn lean eating lots of Rice Krispies.
Not just the
Even
Rice Krispie cereal, the Rice Krispie treats that have actually
yeah,
more sugar in them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I eat a lot of fruit and a lot of carbohydrates,
Mm-hmm.
So
And you also
so yeah,
started off saying that you eat dark chocolate in your breakfast in the morning,
that
right?
is true. That is very
That
true.
was a little bit of a hint
So
there.
you know what? I would say I eat quite a bit of sugar.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think I
in
think
all
like
things.
especially right now, like my calories are high. Like I'm relying actually on simple sugars because I have my foundations of my day where I get all my fiber, I get my whole food sources
Yeah,
and things like that. But like sometimes those quote unquote sugary foods are like top ups, right?
yeah,
And I'm not in a fat loss phase right now, so like I don't have to be thinking about that. But we're going to talk about like stay tuned because we're going to also talk about how sugar could maybe help your fat loss. And I
yeah.
don't
Oh
like
wow.
we're going to talk about that. We're going to
Yeah,
talk about that. But before we do, let's talk a little bit more about like why you can still lose fat while eating sugar. And it's simple and
yeah,
hopefully the previous, few minutes of this conversation are leading towards this moment, but let's talk
yeah.
about that.
So we're kind of talking ourselves in like
A
going
circle.
back and forth and cyclically. We're
Yeah.
talking ourselves in circles a little bit here, but essentially you can still lose fat while eating sugar if you're still in a calorie deficit. So let's say, my body per day, based on everything I do, burns 2,500 calories a day. If I was eating 2,000 calories and some of those calories were sugar, I would still be losing body fat or still be losing weight over
Great
time.
example.
So that's why, as long as you're within the calorie range that would lead you into a calorie deficit based on your body and your expenditure throughout the day, you can definitely still lose body fat or body weight while eating sugar.
Enough said on that. We'll end the circle there. Now let's dive into the next section of the conversation. Sugar versus no sugar is not as straightforward as like, okay, I can eat all the sugar and still lose fat. You can if you're in the calorie deficit. But it's also can make adhering to a calorie deficit harder in some ways, right? So there are ways in which sugar can make fat loss harder, and we can't just be all yay sugar without talking about this as well, right? So let's unpack that a little bit. Why could sugar make fat loss more challenging?
Right. Or have more propensity to lead to fat gain,
Or
right?
yeah,
Same
so
same thing.
we can look at it through either lens, right? There's like
Yeah, both
fat
lenses.
gain, which would be starting to eat a calorie surplus, or make fat loss harder, inhibiting a calorie deficit. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's the
Same
calorie
answer.
equation
It's
at
going to
play.
be the same answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, and then we're talking more specifically to like refined sugars, like you would
Mm-hmm.
you would think like candies and sweets and those type of things. We're not talking about
Oreos.
the fruits that we were
Yes.
mentioning earlier. We're talking
Yes.
about the refined processed sugars. Okay,
Very important.
so in terms of that, it's extremely easy to overeat them because a tiny bit of food has a lot of calories in it. So if you look at an Oreo, what am I more likely to eat? A few Oreos, I could eat that in 5 seconds, and I just had 500 calories. Versus if I had 500 calories of like broccoli, that I probably wouldn't even be able to finish it.
Right.
So it's just
Right.
that's to show the two extremes on foods that are very high in calories density
Mm-hmm.
versus foods that are low in calorie density, and the ones that are high in calorie density, like those sugary type foods, are just so easy to consume,
Mm-hmm.
like this, and they're not giving you any sort of satiety when you eat them. So you can just keep eating and overeat. They're very easy to overeat.
So you just touched on two very important things there. Is like the number of calories you take in, let's say per bite or per serving size, is going to be higher. That also then makes it easier to consume more calories. And then it creates a portion control challenge, right? And that's really what it comes down to is like there's the portion control challenge of that. If you were going to eat the same number of calories from let's actually even just use the quote unquote sugar to sugar comparable, right? You said broccoli, which is hard to eat 500 calories of broccoli. But even if you replace that like with an apple, the difference in like how much like apple is on your plate versus how much Oreos on your plate, both of them are fundamentally sugar. But there's a difference in how much food you're actually eating. So
Yeah, the food volume,
the
how
food
much space
volume.
it takes up. Yeah.
Exactly. And you spoke as well about like satiety. And part of that is like if you're eating more physical volume, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
feel fuller. It's going to take up more space in your stomach. But then there also is a difference in terms of like a lot of those more refined sugars, or I'm going to keep going back to Oreos. I love you, Oreos. Please forgive me. They don't come with fiber. And fiber also helps with satiety versus other
Yeah.
carb sources, like even the apple has fiber. That's going to slow the rate of digestion. I also want to just make a note back to something you said earlier, which is like even your complex carb sources, like your oats that you have and things like that, sweet potatoes, those fundamentally get broken down into sugars by your body.
Mm-hmm.
But that is part of the slower digesting process because your
Mm-hmm.
body's doing that breakdown versus when we ingest the refined sugars, it's already broken down. So faster digestion also leaves us feeling hungry faster.
Yes. Yeah. All ways that make us eat more. And the last thing that would trigger us to eat even more is because they taste so good.
Mm-hmm.
that will just
Mm-hmm.
make us want more and more and more, right? Like these food designers are really smart, right? Their
Yes.
job is to make the foods taste so good and irresistible. That's their entire job, the
Mm-hmm.
food scientists, right? So, that Oreo, it's hard to stop at one if you're a person that likes sweets.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a mixture of, just to reiterate, very calorie dense, right? And these foods don't take up a lot of space, but they have a lot of calories in them. They don't keep you full, so you're more likely to keep overeating, and they taste extremely good. So again, more likely to just keep eating them.
Yeah. So all that together makes fat loss harder or makes weight
Yeah,
gain easier. So
yeah,
is sugar directly causing weight gain? No. Can sugar make weight gain easier because it leads to an excess of calories as a result of all the things we just talked about? Yes. Right. And so that is the link. It's more of an indirect link. There's a step in between. It's not
yeah,
sugar to weight gain, it's sugar to all
yes,
these consequences to eating that style of diet to then weight gain.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, perfect.
So I alluded to this earlier. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about how sugar can make weight gain easier, make fat loss harder. But I also said there is a way in which consuming sugar could make fat loss easier. Does that sound backwards or what?
I don't know. I don't even know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna guess.
Okay, do you want to guess or do you want me to say it?
I'm gonna guess. I think from an adherence perspective, is that what you're gonna say?
How did you know? Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like, let's say I love ice cream sandwiches, and every night I get to eat an ice cream sandwich and fit it into my fat loss calories. Great. It's
Mm-hmm,
gonna keep me
mm-hmm.
consistent.
Yeah, for sure. If you can stick to a plan that includes your favorite foods, and if you have a sweet tooth and your favorite foods include that, you're going to stick to it, right? And at the end of the day, we're not, when we're talking about calorie surplus or calorie deficit, it's not single day I ate in a surplus. Oh my God, I gained weight. It's over time. And same thing with fat loss. If you want to eat in a calorie deficit, it can't be one day and there's your success. It's got to be continued. So if you're somebody who like loves sugar and you tell yourself, I have to cut out sugar in order to stick to my calorie target every day, but then as a result, you can't stick to your calorie target because you can't like cut out sugar, is not realistic for you, or there's no enjoyment left. And so therefore you just like say F it and like just don't even
Mm-hmm.
follow anything. And then cutting out sugar just backfired.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when we say we can't have things, it makes us want them more, especially if it's things that we really like.
Yes.
So if I love my ice cream sandwiches and you say, "Hey, Paris, you can't eat them anymore," well, guess what? I'm going to think about ice cream sandwiches.
It's the same with, it's the pink elephant theory,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
What are
yeah.
you thinking about right now? Because I said pink elephant. I'm thinking about a pink elephant. So you're also thinking about ice cream sandwiches, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like that then creates this like trap that reminds me of last week's conversation, which is about yo-yo dieting, right? It's like we
Yes.
don't eat this thing, we cut it out, then we want it more, then we rebound, that sort of thing, right? So I think really making sure that if you are somebody who has a sweet tooth, if you don't have a sweet tooth and you never want ice cream sandwiches or Oreos or anything sweet, then don't force it. It's not like you have to eat it. But if you're somebody who is struggling to cut it out because some of these foods are your favorites or they're constantly in your environment, you're surrounded by them, and the temptation feels too real or your cravings are skyrocketing, then don't expect yourself to cut it out because you won't be able to, right? And I'm not trying to take away from people's like will and ability and determination, but don't make it harder than it needs to be. So you said that you start your day with your protein oats and you almost always put dark chocolate in it, right?
Yeah. And and with my calories now, I have 2 Rice Krispies on the side as well.
There you go, right? So
Yeah.
you look forward to your breakfast every day. And I know you're not somebody who naturally gets like super excited about food, but you love that. You enjoy
Yeah,
that, right?
I still look forward to it. Yeah.
You look forward to it.
Yeah.
It's part of your game plan. So I think what we need to encourage everyone to do is think about where does it make sense and in what quantities. So
Mhm.
here's the reframe I want to bring to the table today. Okay. The question you need to ask yourself is not, should I cut out sugar? Should I avoid sugar? Is sugar allowed? Those are not the questions to be asking. The question is, does this insert sugary item that you love here help or hinder the way I'm trying to eat today and the way I'm trying to eat tomorrow and consistently and day after? Because if you include that dark chocolate in your oats and that helps you eat oats, which are a breakfast that's going to fill you up, get a serving of protein in because it's mixed into your oats, and stay on track the rest of the day because you're satisfied that sweet tooth, it's actually going to help,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
for sure. Definitely. It's definitely, yeah. It's figuring out like if you are somebody that likes sugar, in what quantities do you want to include it based on your current goals, and in this case we're talking about fat loss goals. So as long as we are checking off all the other boxes for fiber and fruits and veggies and complex carbohydrates, there's nothing wrong with filling in the gaps with sugar. And you'll notice the higher your calories are, the more room you probably have for that. If you're somebody who needs to be on relatively low calories to lose weight, maybe you don't have as much processed carbohydrates or sugars involved in there, and vice versa for somebody that's on a lot of food. That's if you do like sugar. But I would say we usually go with the guideline, like the 80-20 guideline, where 80% of your calories should be coming from nutrient dense whole foods, things that you would think of as quote unquote healthy, and then 20% you can fill in the gaps with whatever you want. So if I'm eating 2,000 calories, that leaves me, you can do the math on that, however many calories, we'll do the math on that. That's 400 calories worth that I can then.
Good skills.
So bad. 400 calories and I can spend quote unquote on whatever I want. And maybe that is my dark chocolate and my Rice Krispie squares for the day. Doesn't mean I have to, but that's kind of a good guideline so that we're still checking our boxes for like health, satiety, energy, recovery, all those things.
Protein. Also, don't forget, because protein has calories, right? Of course,
protein, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, people who listen to this know they have to hit their protein numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Like, Team Truth knows. Team Truth knows. Yeah, I like that you said as well, like you don't have to, right? Like what we're saying here is for people who struggle to cut out sugar, or some of their favorite foods might be more, let's say, sugar oriented, right? Like if you're somebody who's like, I can go days without eating something sweet, then don't go force and start including it. Like that's not what we're here to say. This is really just to help you understand that sugar can have a place in your fat loss success or in curbing weight gain, right? Like you can still eat sugar without being worried about gaining weight. And that's really what we want people to take away from this.
Yeah. And then my last thing I'll say is, however, the caveat is if you are somebody who has trigger foods that involve sugar, like for example, if I have cereal when I'm in a fat loss phase, I could eat like 7 bowls of cereal. So if you know that if you have one Oreo, you will not be able to stop. Like, don't open up the Oreos. Why self-sabotage?
Don't even keep it in the house, right?
Yeah, it's not worth it. If you can have a few and put it back, great. But if you're not going to be able to stop, don't start. So that's the only other kind of thing I would say.
I wouldn't just say that's the only other thing you should say. Like that's a big thing to say, right? I think it requires super amount of self-awareness. And I'm going to say something that's going to sound kind of harsh, but I think a lot of people race to cut out sugar because they don't have self-awareness. It's because they don't understand, how do I include this in moderation? They don't understand how it actually fits into, and this isn't so much self-awareness, but like nutrition education. They don't understand how it fits into
knowledge. It's
calories
and
knowledge.
Anytime we hear that,
Exactly. It's a knowledge gap. So we're here today to like at least hopefully fill in some of the gap from a knowledge perspective, but it's up to anyone on kind of like on their own, or if they've got a coach, work with your coach to actually understand your own level of self-awareness around your own trigger foods, right? Like if you have a favorite kind of sugary food, prioritize that one. And don't worry about like, if you don't like brownies, don't eat brownies as your source of sugar, right? You have to build the awareness of like which foods make sense for me to include, both in terms of preference, but also in terms of like certain amount of like ability to control your own outcomes in relationship with that food, which takes work, right?
100%. Awesome.
Okay. So I think we're going to leave it there. Short and sweet. Hopefully this, short and sweet. That wasn't even intentional. That was a good one. Pun of the day. So please, like, first of all, consider the science. Consider the science as we've laid it out today. Sugar is a form of calories. There's nothing special about it that leads to weight gain or stops you from hitting your fat loss goals. But you do need to be mindful of like the reasons why sugar can make it easy to consume more calories than you intend to. Right. That's really, I think, the TLDR. Would you add anything to that little summary?
No, I think we did a good job. I think we did a lot of dancing around in this podcast, but we still delivered the value.
Yeah. It's hard not to, because it's like, this is everybody has an opinion on this for some reason. Yeah. And like, I don't know, I can be sensitive to opinions, but this one is like, this is a science thing for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Some things are just incorrect or correct though.
Yeah.
With nutritional science.
That's true. Hopefully you now feel like you have the science in your back pocket. If you have a favorite sweet food that you love and that helps you stick to your game plan on a daily basis, like Paris's dark chocolate, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. Or if you have somebody that you think would benefit from clearing up some of the myths around sugar, send them this episode. Without further ado, we will leave you for this week. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe below because we'll be back in your feeds with another episode of Truth Talks next Monday. And in case you're not counting, because you probably aren't, next week is actually episode 50. So we're going to plan to do something a little special for next week's episode. So stay tuned for that one. And thank you for listening. Yeah, 50 already, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Have a wonderful week,
day,
everyone.
Everybody.
Bye for now.